Welcome everyone to today's performance clinic. It's already episode 3 of Why Devs Love Dynatrace. Today's topic or focus is automated release comparison. And as the previous other 2 episodes, the man here, or the showman, the guy who is like giving us all the great details is Sergio. Sergio, hola, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien. Hi guys. My name is Sergio. If you don't know me, I've been with the company for a couple of years now. We kicked this webinar called Why Devs Love Dynatrace, and we set the stage for episode 3. Okay. Yeah. So today is going to be about automated release comparison. What it really is, we'll see it in a few.
Perfect. And before I kick it over to you, just a couple of reminders. If you're watching this live, great, use the Q&A feature. I will moderate. If you're watching this recorded, because it's going to be pushed on YouTube as well as on university.dynatrace.com, you can also ask questions, either by replying to the registration, leaving us a comment, sending us emails. You have our names. I'm sure you'll find a way how to follow up with us. So make sure. Also ask questions on the community.dynatrace.com. But with this, Sergio, I'll pass it over to you. Episode 3, automated release comparison. Tell us more about it.
Thank you, Andy. So let's start. This webinar is all about developers, for developers, right? The name said is Why Devs Love Dynatrace. So episode 1 was about distributed trace diagnostics. Episode 2 was about intelligent quality gates. So we introduced intelligent quality gates into this webinar. Episode 3 is what are we going to do with the quality gates, right? What are the advantages and how you as a developer can you optimize your code and detect and stop bad builds? So this is pretty much what we're gonna do today. Before I start, as you know, we set up a code lab for you. Dynatrace-perfclinics.github.io. With a lot of love, we're sharing everything to you. So in episode 1 and 2, you're gonna find all the steps, and we're linking a GitHub repository so you can clone and create the CI/CD pipeline, right? You need just 2 VMs, 2 Ubuntu machines, and you're gonna have the whole setup, the same setup as we have in this webinar showing, right? On the left side, you're gonna find also some other links to the open source repositories, Dynatrace Space, Captain, which is a project that we kicked off in Dynatrace and give it as a gift to the CNCF organization. So with no further ado, let me just start. And since this is a webinar series, let me just make a recap what we have done so far. Episode 1 was about distributed trace diagnostic. In software development, it's really, really important, the feedback. The better the feedback for the developers is, the better the software will be. During the development, of course, right? So Andy and myself presented Dynatrace, the out-of-the-box features. What is the Smartscape, the full stack visibility, observability, right? The whole, how Dynatrace and the one agent captures all transactions end-to-end in the vertical and horizontal stack, right? Without configuration. So we show the advantages of the PurePaths, all the features. This is a patented technology which we have experienced for over 8 years, right? We have been developing all this tracing information, right? Tracing technology. And in the PurePath, in the traces that Dynatrace captured automatically for you, you get thread information, you get synchronization issues, CPU, memory, and you don't only get the traces, but you get also diagnostic features. Dynatrace has AI-powered diagnostic features, which we're gonna use today for comparing your releases, okay? We learn how to analyze big environments, we learn how to find transactions, and we play the role as a developer, where with Easy Travel Angular has a REST endpoint, and we did some requests, some post requests, and we analyzed them by our name. If you remember, we find those transactions and get all these details automatically, right? So while Dynatrace get this automatically, the only thing we did is add a header so the developers can find these transactions in any environment. It can be test, development, QA, whatever. So because the idea is how to give developers the power, or DevOps engineers, of all this trace information, right? So we saw that even if the transaction takes microseconds or milliseconds, Dynatrace captures it and gives you information about the SQLs. You can see here the rows returned, the fetches, the sizing, metadata, everything is out. It is for you configured, right? Out of the box. And of course, you can enhance it. Something we showed in episode 1. Episode 2, we level up what we did, and the synthetic test, we created synthetic tests. Dynatrace had synthetic capabilities for REST endpoints and full browser endpoints. So we created a test, and with Monaco, which is monitoring as code, we rolled out the monitoring and the synthetic test in the cloud infrastructure of Dynatrace, right? So your easy travel machine will be tested continuously in testing stages, right? So you can test key functionalities the whole time, right? There is also a browser that is testing and doing a full booking, because this is a booking application. If you are working in a bank, you might be doing bank transactions, or in an insurance, making insurance payments, something like that, right? Any application has a business feature and you can test it, right? So, but testing in synthetic is not good enough for checking if it's ready for production. For this, we need a quality gate and performance test to make sure that the application works when you need it the most under load. So we're leveraging Captain, or in Dynatrace, we call it cloud automation, to use the performance as a service, the JMeter files, we upload them, and with SLI, SLO quality gates, meaning service level indicators and objectives. To learn more about them, go to episode 2, because we explain what they are. We're checking the transactions to the whole stack. So you can make your pipeline, either any pipeline. In this case, we're using Jenkins. You can also have Azure DevOps or GitLab, or maybe your own pipeline, right? The only thing that you need to do is send a REST call to Dynatrace, and the cloud automation will trigger the quality gate, the performance test, and evaluate it, the status quo, and the previous releases, and tell you if it's good or is it bad. Everything automatically, right? As you can see here, these are the SLIs and SLOs being evaluated. All the lines that you see is because we have an endless pipeline. We're simulating developers pushing code, and in each release, right, we're triggering the load test and the evaluation. So as you can see, there is a pattern. Why? Because 5 releases have a problem and 1 doesn't. Dynatrace has no idea about it. We're throwing it to the wall, and the quality gate tested for us, right? So this is the JMeter file. As you can see, these are the key transactions: submit a payment, doing a search, doing a login. All this information is being tracked in Dynatrace automatically, right? So we gave an overview of the architecture, how it looks like, what is the whole setup. And if you run Monaco, you will have a dashboard like this. If you trigger the pipeline, you will see every hour you have everything in there. So in episode 3 today, if release is not good enough, if it fails, we as developers need to find out why, what changed. It might be not our code, it might be the code of someone else, because software projects are sometimes really big with a lot of microservices and pods and classic stack and mainframe. So today we're gonna learn how Dynatrace is gonna pinpoint exactly the problem in your code, right? So,
hey, Sergio, one quick
yes.
thing. Hopefully the thunders that are rolling through Linz right now are not disturbing my audio quality, but because I see a couple of people have just joined while you were going through the previous episodes. What you just showed was basically a look back what you did in episode 1 and episode 2. And what I will do now, I have already posted a link to your Code Lab page. So for those people that joined late, I will resend the link to the Code Lab so that you can, see all the previous videos. And exactly. Yeah, here we go.
So I'm showing it here right now. Yeah. Dynatrace-perfclinics.github.io. Here we have the Code Lab. Episode 1 and 2 were already out. And you can see we have even linked the YouTube video, which we're gonna do also today. We're gonna link when we have it ready, put it in episode 3, right? Which this is the episode. And we're gonna put also the steps that we're gonna do today.
All right, that's it. I just wanted to make sure that people understand.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. And guys, if you have any questions, just please write your question. Andy will try to answer myself as well. So we are here for you, right? We're doing this all because we love developers, we love Dynatrace. So just shout. Okay, let's start. Foundations of load test analysis. Very important is to use the best practices as we were using it in episode 2, that you have a load test, that you test the full functionality. So if I have a booking application, I'm gonna test the whole procedure of the booking, right? Because I wanna test all the key functionalities of my application, right? So if you don't have an environment set up, as said before, we love the developer community. So we are sharing just for this live webinar, user and password to the environment where we're going to do the webinar, right? So this is the URL. The user is Dynatrace log. The password is very much.
And I also just posted this to the chat. So for those that are live, do it. And for those that watch this later on, see, this is the reason why you should be here live. And yeah, also I think I look ahead. I think in episode 4 you will do the same. So hopefully people will sign up for episode 4. Episode
3 and episode 4 are just hands-on analyzing code, analyzing everything that Dynatrace gives us. So if you have logged in, right, you should see a dashboard like this, which was the dashboard we had in episode 2. For those that have it, we modified some links, right? So we have a better access for episode 3, right? And the links are, if you see here in the compare and classic eval, we're adding the service ID so we can click in there and go exactly to the service or show exactly the service flow of an entity in Dynatrace, right? So it's really easy. You just pull the repository, set your variables you already have set in, and you do, and deploy Monaco. If you have done it, it's not a problem. Let me show you. This is why one of the biggest advantages of having Monaco, right? So for example, when I click edit, let's say, sorry. I'm just gonna delete, I don't know, everything here because I'm a bad developer and I just broke stuff, right? So once we have this in Monaco, I just sort, you see it's fetching the shell file. It was adapted to curl in the API, the IDs. Really easy. We love APIs. It's really fast. It's really good for development. So now I have the service ID and process group set it up with the IPs of easy travel for the synthetic test and all that, what you have seen in episode 2. I run Monaco, right? If you have the environment that we share, you're gonna see that I broke the dashboard. But if I refresh it, right, it's gonna update it, and there you go. Beautiful, right? This is the advantage of Monaco. And if I have 100 environments, I will do the same with 100 environments.
I want to say this is really cool because I have on my other screen the dashboard open. And it's like, magically, first of all, you deleted half of it, and then magically it came up again. Monaco is awesome. Again, for those people that are new to Monaco, Monaco stands for monitoring as code. That means you define what you want, your configuration, your dashboards, your alerting rules, your request attributes, your metrics, your SLOs in a config file. And then with a click of a button, with an execution of a shell script, with an API call, boom, you got all of your configuration applied to your environment.
Exactly. And not only that, you can also download it. Let's say I make changes manually. You can download your configuration and save it, right? So it's really, really cool. So what we have added in this dashboard, we have a link to the release inventory. What it is, I'm gonna show it right now. We put this idea of the process group to the memory allocation and thread group analysis, something that I'm gonna explain in episode 4, and a link to the service ID, which is an easier access. We can, of course, with the super search of Dynatrace or with the service dashboard, find the classic, but in here we have it because the classic eval is the reverse proxy where all the transactions get into the system, right? So it will be the entry point for comparing load tests. Wherever the load tests go, we're going to compare it from there, right? So the release inventory. So if you click in the release inventory here, right? It's a link within Dynatrace. Let me just show. On the left side, on the burger menu, we have it in here called releases, right? Which is nothing else than release here. And as you can see, all these process groups that Dynatrace detected, they are one agent automatically, right? With Dynatrace Easy Travel. As you can see now, the version is logging problems, right? Why? Because we have a demo environment and we're pushing the problem pattern as the release name, right? In your environment, it will be the notation that you're using. For us, it's easy to understand, okay, right now we have the login problem and the build 194, right? Which is linked to our Jenkins pipeline. On the right side, you see the release events, right? And below the track issue, really nice information because you can, with filters, configure your ticketing system. This could be ServiceNow, this could be GitHub. In here we have GitHub and we can see problem patterns. We have 5 issues, deployment 0-1. And if I click on problem patterns, it will open the GitHub repository of the perf clinics, and it's matching our filter with the problem, right? Really cool functionality. The idea is that if you have a match on the release, like login problems or your problems, so you can keep track on production, how many transactions, users, or components are being affected by software release, right? Really cool functionality. So, okay. So pretty much what I explained, you can see how is this link. And if we open a process group, by the way, let me just actually show that. If we open a process group, it's going to show us and take us exactly where this is deployed. Let's say, for example, this business backend jar, right? Running on this host, I click too fast. Here is the host, right? Easy Travel staging. And how does it work with, remember the SLIs and SLOs? It's basically because we're fetching information through the whole stack, host, process group, transactions, even users, based on tagging. Really cool functionality in Dynatrace. We showed that in episode 1 and 2 with management zones and key values in our tagging, right? Really, really nice. So we can automatically, in a really easy way, make a load test and get the information, memory, CPU, thread, synchronization of all the entities from our application, no matter how big it is. So, okay, what is happening behind the scenes? As you can see, we have always a test running. And if I change the time, instead of 1 hour, I put 6 hours, we're gonna see 6 different load tests, right? Why is that? We have, as said in episode 2, we're simulating developers pushing code. We call the pipeline devs being devs, right? And here we have Alfred, which is our code monkey, and he's pushing code once an hour, right? Depending on the time, we're gonna activate one. This is why it's so symmetric or pipeline, right? Depending on the time, we have deployment 0 or none, which is no problem, or the problems have a name, right? And we're gonna push the pipeline, do the load test, and this is why we have different results every hour, right? This is our Jenkins pipeline, and we're making Jenkins smarter. We're not replacing Jenkins, we're making it smarter with a lot of really good information. As you can see, here's Jenkins, and we're letting Jenkins know, hey, this is a good build or this is a bad build, right? So you can decide what to do with your builds. And this is based on science. This is based on comparing releases over time, right? So we're automating and level up performance test evaluations with intelligent quality gates. And this is something that you can do in your company for any pipeline and any software. It just needs to be monitored with Dynatrace, and automatically you get all this information, right? So because this is an overview of the service flow, and we're filtering here by the test step name. Remember the test name, the home, login, doing a search, and Dynatrace is capturing this information automatically here without a specific test name. So all the flow in this example, we have 12,000 transactions, right? In here is just the login, the search, finish payment. So we have every single, Dynatrace is capturing all this information, right? And we are going to separate them and evaluate the different key functionalities to see what changes in our releases, okay? And on the right side, you see also the infrastructure. So all the traces in Dynatrace go vertically, and we also get information on the horizontal stack, right? To see in which pod at that time the transaction run or process or host, right? So really, really, really important, and really, this is like gold for developers, right? So let's warm up. Let's start with the analysis. For this, we're gonna show the service flow of the finished payment of any release, and we're gonna show the exceptions of the impacted test steps in a specific in any load step, right? So let's go to the service flow and filter by finished payment. Okay, so in here we have a link. I click in the service flow, and I just type request attribute, test step name, finish payment. As easy as that. I click on apply, and there you go. Really, really cool, right? This is the time. We're not filtering by specific release, but we can still see average response time 121 milliseconds for 3,500 end-to-end transactions. And look how it goes all the way, and it gives us the inter-tier time through all the services from the vertical stack and the horizontal stack with the proxies and all the information, right? Really nice information. So that was the first example. The second one, let's show the exceptions of any load test, right? Very easy. We have also a link here. Let's click on exceptions. We are in MDA, which stands for multidimensional analysis. If you were not in episode 1, please see it, because we're showing how to work with MDA and filter transactions and have filters of transactions. So we're gonna filter by transactions having a test step name, any value, we don't care. And there you have it, right? And we can add here also, let's test step name as a dimension. And you see here, access tested and submit payment. Really cool, right? So this is just for getting warm up. I'm not gonna drill down because we have the information and the stack trace of each transaction, but that we did in episode 1. Okay. So now what we want to do is compare a release that failed, right? Because if we set up a quality gate as we have right now, it's gonna stop a bad build, which is great, but that's not enough. You need to modify and see what changed, right? How to make it pass your quality gate. So we want to understand, in this case, the release called CPU load journey service failed. Why did it fail, right? So we're gonna compare it with build 0. We need a build that passed the quality gate, and against that, we're gonna compare the bad build, right? Because it does not make sense to compare bad with bad. We need a good one with a bad one to see what did change, right? So what are we gonna notice? We're gonna show the response time of the different test steps, which is the key functionality of our application, and to see what changed and notify the team, right? So one way to do this is clicking on the classic eval, and we're gonna see the deployment events, right? As we saw in episode 2, Dynatrace is getting all this information and the links to all the systems, right? So we see here we have the link to the Captain bridge, the cloud automation bridge with the evaluation, and also the deployment event with the link to the application and the link to Jenkins and to all your systems and even who committed and the commit ID and all that, right? So in our case, we put it here. Here we have one deployment event because we have 1 hour. If I click on 6 hours, 6 deployments, and we're gonna compare CPU load journey, which happened at 3 p.m. with deployment 0 at 2. So we compared 3 p.m. versus 2 p.m. Makes sense, right? Because in the custom info, we see 3 p.m. failed, 2 p.m. passed, right? Failed, And if we open it, here is Jenkins, and here is the bridge. So the bridge is the one that's gonna tell us that yes, SLI and SLO that failed, right? So we open the evaluation and we see it's marked that it failed. You see, this is the score, 59 points. And here we have red that it failed the SLIs, right? Which is the response time 95 percentile and 90 percentile, right? And the key functionality of search and recommendations, right? Now, take a look at this. The evaluation is selecting 3 past builds because we are evaluating the 3 past builds in this case, right? It's really good. It's not comparing the status quo. We're comparing the status quo with percentages or thresholds, right? And together with the average of the 3 past builds, right? So we see that it failed, right? Because the response time didn't pass the gate, okay? So, and now I'm gonna ask you, why did the release did not pass, right? Well, Captain Performance is telling us, well, this is obvious. The SLO failed. Yeah, but why did it fail? Why is it slower? What changed? Yeah. And I bet you any software but Dynatrace has the power to tell you exactly what changed automatically, right? And I'm going to show you how you can do it in your application. So either we go to the classic, and in here we have a link which was already deployed, compare. It's going to take us to the comparison from the service, the first service where we get the load test, right? We want to get the information from the very beginning, right? The other way is dynamic request and click on compare, right? So let's do that. We click on compare, then we select, 3, 2, 3, or maybe like 350, right? Which is the first one. And in here we put the custom frame and select today and 2 p.m. So we have release that failed. And so the first question is, what do we notice first? The bad build is taking over 20 minutes, almost 25, versus the first one is less than 10 minutes, right? Why is this? It's because this is a session-based load test. 500 bookings less, 500 bookings right? But since the transaction was synchronously of the bookings, see how the times goes even the double, right? And the comparison, we can also see the failures, load, right? But we don't have failures or the change in load we see, right? Which is just more compact, but it's the same amount of load, right? No failures, but we have a change in the response time, right? And in order to understand it better, this is why we're talking about the foundations of load test analysis, is we need to compare not the average of all the transactions, but we need to see apples with apples and bananas with bananas, right? So for this, we click in the attributes in test steps name and see, this is just information that we set up with one header, and Dynatrace is able to tell us the distribution of the different key functionalities and how the search and recommendations go from 67 milliseconds to 1 second or 2 seconds in response time. Really, really crazy, right? So now we know, okay, this is the average of all the transactions that are going before we were in 30 milliseconds. And now we have over 2 seconds. So we apply the filter. We're applying a filter, a chain of filter. So now we have the load test, and we're comparing the service flow, remember, end to end, all the traces, but by the functionality of calculating journey recommendations. Now we're going to click on the response time hotspots, right? And remember how we used it in episode 1. So we're diving in and we are in the reverse proxy. And it's letting us know, hey, from 2.64 seconds, 2.59 is an increase, right? It's like thousands of percent, right? And now we take a look at this. The light blue is the previous release. All transactions were from 0 to 700 milliseconds, and all the new ones, the bad ones, are all over the place, right? So for those that think that standard deviations is the status quo in applications, no, it's not, right? Because you have a lot of variables, you have synchronization, CPU issues, whatever. And we see we have transaction over 6 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, right? 25% go between 1 and 3 seconds, okay? Now, Dynatrace is letting us know, hey, the response time is going in interaction with other services and queues. No database usage is used by our REST proxy, thank God. No service execution. The Nginx modules is like not visible, but everything is going to the request, calculate recommendations on this Apache server. Like, okay, let's jump into there, right? So we go and we jump into the next service. So now the time adapts, right? And it's letting us know that Apache doesn't do database, no service, and it calls the customer frontend, calculate recommendations, right? One time. So we jump into the Tomcat. Now that we're in Tomcat, it's letting us know, hey, this Tomcat has some service execution, right? But the service execution is in interaction with services and queues. Look, it's not on this service. It's 6 times calling the journey service. And look at the right side, right? On the left side is letting us know it's calling the web server is calling the front end, the other Tomcat, 6 times, but it's calling find journeys and find locations. So in that service, there is a method called find journeys. So it's calling 5 times find journeys, and it's calling 1 time find location. Find location has an increase of over half a second, 459 milliseconds, and 5 journeys has an increase on average of 426 milliseconds. Really, really crazy, right? So together, 5 times this time plus 1 time 459 gives us on average 2.59 seconds, right? So this is an insane amount of information we're getting already now, and we have not even gone into the root cause. So what we can do here, right? Since we have the same service, this is the journey service, I can filter transactions by a method and a service, or just by the service, right? So for keeping this easier, just filter by the service and without the method, because we want to analyze both methods, journeys and location. So I apply the filter, I jump into the next service, right? Now look at the time. It's letting us know in average in the journey service per transaction, we have 431 milliseconds, right? Remember before we have over 2 seconds. Why? Because of the inter-tier time. The transaction application can be very complex, but Dynatrace can handle it, okay? So now we see the distribution of the request, and in here we see there is a slightly increase on database of some microseconds, but actually it's in code execution. Dynatrace is letting us know, hey, we have here code execution, right? And now is where we're gonna deep dive into the code method. Okay, let's see the method hotspots. Take a look at above. All our filters are being kept, right? We were navigating and Dynatrace were saving the filters, okay? If we were to apply a method, it will be here, the find journeys or file locations, but we have not. So Dynatrace is also letting us know from the traces, most of the time is in execution. Almost no locking, no this, no writing to this, no network, no waiting, right? What is in your company? What problems do you have? Here you will see them, right? So there is a functionality called hotspots, which Dynatrace from all these transactions is letting us know, hey, the response time in code execution is getting away in calculate section index in the location parser. And if I have no idea who's calling it, we're gonna do like the reverse from debug, right? So we follow the breakdown and see, hey, it looks like this is a loop, right? Calling itself, right? And we can follow it down all the way. And there we see is called by the check destination, and check destination is being called either by find journeys or find locations. Does it make sense? Before we have these find journeys and find locations with a problem in CPU, now we know why, right? Let me show it from a different way. The hierarchy, this is where the threads start. We have the HTTP, the servlet getting all the requests, and now with RPC, we follow it through. here we see the find journeys. By the way, in your company, you might have bigger stack trays, so you can very easily type and filter on the top, right, by the package that you are that you're responsible. And then we see check destinations. We follow the CPU, right? And here we see section index. Okay, so and now what we're gonna do is say like, hey, Dynatrace, I really don't believe you. So what is behind this calculate section index, right? So I click on the source code, and what we're gonna do now, and what you can do because you have the rights to do it, we're going to get the class on real time. We're gonna send an notification to the agent and say, hey, agent, give us the class location parser that you're running right now, right? Dynatrace is even able to show us the hierarchy of the objects. In here, we're only extending from the Java lang object. So we save it to the desktop, save, right? Show it in Finder, right? And now what I'm gonna do is decompile. I have some, for example, this one is good. And now I'm just going to drag and drop. No, I think, let me see. There it is, decompiling. Oh, right. And Dynatrace was letting us know, again, what was the name of the method? Calculate section index. So calculate section index, right? And here we see how it starts to iterate, right? And before, I mean, can you see this, Andrew? Should I make it bigger?
Yeah, I think a little bigger is good. But I think it's just really cool because this allows you to get into source code that you may not have available, right? Because we obviously detect problems in your libraries, in your third-party components. And while you have the source code available of your code, and you can then jump into that. But this now is also great because you can just download whatever runs in the environment. Yeah.
And you can make sure exactly that the change that you push or the release has the code that you want to have, because sometimes it's like, well, I would push it, but did it really make it to release to the production, right? So really nice way to compare and to see that you have the class that you want is really running in prod or test or whatever you have. And here we have calibrate parse section loop 10,000 times, right? So this is a problem pattern that is active in this environment, but the idea is, I mean, and it has no configuration. So Dynatrace, if you have a performance problem as this one or any other, Dynatrace will let you know and we'll find it the same way that we just did, right? So all the steps, what we did and I explained, are gonna be in the code lab, right? So you can follow along. In here, I have an example how I, even on the left side, I filter by the method. And I get into the method hotspot by method. On the right side without the method, so we see both or with one, right? Really, really, really a lot of information. So Captain Performance is now really happy, and he noticed that the calculate section index in the location parser was the problem that impacted 2 transactions in your load test, okay? On the journey service. So now that we compare one, let's go and compare another one, because now we know how this works. So now we want to understand why the release journey update slow failed. Okay. Captain Performance know already how to do the comparison. So let's do it. So the journey update slow. Let's see on this and our environment. We go back to the dashboard. We go to our evaluation. We list the deployments in the service. So it's an easier way. And we take a recent one. And journey update slow today at 12. And we compare the bad one with the good one, which is at 2. 12 versus 2, right? So we click on compare. And here, 12 to 1250. And by the way, what I'm doing can be done for yesterday or last week or 2 weeks ago. You just need to have the PurePaths in the storage so Dynatrace can work its magic and compare all the traces. Okay. What was the time? I forgot. Was it 2? 12 and 2? Yes. Okay. In here, we see the same. We have an increase in response time, right? And this release takes even more than 25 minutes. So we do the same. We take a look at the key functionalities, which are the test steps name, and we see an increase again in recommendations and in the search, right? So we take the bigger one to make our lives easier. And now we continue our drill down. Really, really easy to compare releases, right? So now that we have, because this is the same, if I show you the bridge, we're gonna see in the bridge that it failed, and we're gonna see the KPIs, the SLI that failed, right? But why? This is the question. So again, distribution of transaction, interaction with other services. So I'm gonna click in here. We see calculated recommendations, calling one time with an increase of 2.5 seconds. Okay, so let's go to the next entity. So we're navigating through the load test, through the services, right? And Dynatrace is showing us the hotspots in each service. This can be Java, Nginx modules, Apache modules, PHP, .NET, all these mixes with Node.js or whatever you have, and it's working the same and it's showing you the timings of the degradation. So I jump into the next. So now we are in the front end and we see the increase here, and it's letting us know, hey, you have code execution and calls to the find journeys in the journey service, right? So it's calling 6 times, find journeys 5 times with an increase of 400 milliseconds per call times 5, 2.4, and find locations 75 milliseconds, not that much as the other, 1 time. Okay, so again, we can filter by journey service or by find journeys within journey service. So let's do this. Let's go to find journeys within. No, you know what? Let's filter by both again. So we get a bigger picture and also the 75 milliseconds of decrease. So now the image looks different. Again, if we click on the left, on the response time, we see the distribution of the request, right? Now look at how this distribution is different. We see that over 50% are in 300 milliseconds, now in 20, and then the next block is between 3 and 700, then 1 second, and then the slower starts to get like this. Why is it? The other problem was because of CPU. The more CPU, it has to have like this different distribution. In here, we have a locking distribution, right? The more threads starts to come, they will start to detect, and the other transactions that are missing, they start to get more and more. There are less transactions, but with more response time. Does it make sense? Because Dynatrace is letting us know, hey, from the 400 milliseconds, 200 is spent on lock and wait time. So you can throw so much CPU and memory at your hardware, you're not going to be able to solve this problem. And companies, believe me, they do like that. This is the easiest, right? If you don't know what is the problem because you're lacking visibility, you don't have Dynatrace, just put more CPU and more memory. But these kinds of problems you will not be able to solve with more CPU or more memory, right? It's also letting us know, hey, you have one select statement that is taking you 80 milliseconds on average per call. This is a lot for an SQL, which, by the way, is new. Dynatrace is letting you know, hey, this SQL is new. It was not on the other release. And in this release is new, and it's taking you on average 80 milliseconds, right? And we have here the whole SQL with the timing and information, right? And if I click on database usage, that's not all. We have the new SQL, but we can also split on the right by changing invocations, changing contribution, or even the percentage of calls. Really a lot of information that we have at our fingertips, right? But the biggest issue is the lock and wait time within the service. Here means service execution that within this service. So if I were the journey service developer, I need to take a look at this code, right? Because there is something blocking the threads in my service. So I click on the method hotspots, I jump in my service. Look how the colors look different in this example, because we have over 70% of locking time. We can filter by the APIs, execution time, and here we have the locking time, right? So, and again, this is just because we filter, or Dynatrace help us how to filter, because we were just navigating, which is really fun to navigate through the transactions. And it's letting us know, hey, your time is being spent in locking, right? If I click on the hotspots, it's automatically letting us know is the do execute of the journey update class. This class has a locking problem, right? I'm like, Dynatrace, I don't believe you. Show me. Okay, so let's start navigating. If I don't believe it, on the right side, this is the contribution. Let me just take the filter so we even show code this network. So we can see by the colors that in these kinds of methods, the average response time is spent either in code execution, on locking. So that's the state of the threads, what they do, okay? So we continue navigating what normally is transaction, because this stack trace, imagine like capturing debuggers, like thousands of debuggers, and putting the information here, right? With also information about what the CPU handles are doing. So we can see that in the find journeys, we have a jump. Find locations has no locking problem, right? So from this class, we have here some other methods, and we have two calls: find journeys, find locations. Find locations has no locking problem whatsoever, but find journeys does have really important information. And in the find journeys, we continue navigating. We see here execute, journey do execute. The do execute has synchronization, and look at the jump between do execute and get journeys. The synchronization time goes away, right? Why is that? So I'm gonna click the source code to show the problem of the thread, right? In here it looks a bit different. Dynatrace is helping us and is getting this class information, the object hierarchy. We are interested in the implementation, which is the journey update. I'm sending a request to the agent running. In this case, we have it in a cloud provider, I believe it's AWS. So we're getting the class from the agent, from the process running on that time. All right. I just download it. I show it in Finder. And in the decompiler, let me just drag it, journey update class. It decompiles it. Here is the method. Let me just make it bigger. To execute update thread, what do we have there? New update thread, new thread. So on the do execute, the developer is creating always two threads by every transaction that runs in the do execute method. So that might be not the smartest way to get fetch a database to create different threads, right? And this is why when we get a load test, if we don't have a load test and you have your developer environment or your machine, you might not be able to see it because the threads are never going to be able to block. But if you get a load test, then you're going to see that you have a problem in synchronization. And this is why load testing with good best practices and a quality gate and Dynatrace, no performance problem is going to get through. So
nicely said.
Exactly. So all the slides and the steps are going to be in the code lab, and even with the screen of the code, but I have here put also a summary. So Dynatrace shows us, because we are really good in time for going to the last Q&A session. But before I finish, let's just recap what we clicked through. Dynatrace showed us, because we only click, everything was captured automatically, right? We just only filter the transactions, compare the release, and it showed us like, hey, in this release failed because in the journey service, which called 6 times, right? The front end, 1 time is find locations and 5 times the find journeys. Find location was not important, didn't have a synchronization issue, but the find journeys had the synchronization issue, right? With the average call time per call. The increase was mostly in block and wait time, also out of the box, letting us know that there were new database queries being executed. Also very important to understand, hey, who did this new SQL, right? The contribution of the queries was not the problem, response time-wise, but there was one query with over 80 milliseconds, right? Completely new query that was not on the other release. The rest of the time was in lock and wait in the method to execute of the journey update class. When we decompile the source code, we noticed that 2 thread objects were created. Okay. So, I had the slide twice. Actually, I wanted to have this with the Captain performance, right? And if you look at the news, having blocking issues can be a big problem for software or the economy. So make sure you don't have blocking threads, okay? So just take a moment and digest. We are developers, we like memes. And please digest the amount of level and insights Dynatrace is giving us with a few clicks. By learning just where to click is really insane. I have no other words but to say it's absolutely insane the amount and depth of insights Dynatrace is giving us out of the box for developers and the DevOps community, right? And again, we did not add any configuration but the HTTP headers, right? We have, yes, other configurations, synthetic tests, dashboards, and all that, which, by the way, we use Monaco. So in a matter of seconds, we just deploy all the configuration using a GitOps approach, right? So please, guys, use this in your developers, in your development scenarios or testing scenarios. If you have questions, reach out to us because we really want to empower you to help make you better software faster, right? And yes, Captain Performance is now really happy. Thank you very much. We have some time for Q&A, and see you on the 8th of July for our final episode, which we're going to talk about runtime optimization. We made comparison of releases. Now we're going to do runtime optimization, really cool features with garbage collection, thread synchronization issues, process groups, API usage, locking issues, right? More for developers.
Very nice, Sergio. And I think well, first of all, thank you so much for episode number 3. I also always learn a lot because even though I've been with the company for so long and I've been working with the product, there's just so many things going on, and you have obviously you've been doing some deep dives here. And the first question that was asked earlier, but I think you just answered it because this will most likely be covered in the next episode. But Simon is asking, what are other best practices to identify thread issues?
Episode 4.
Episode 4, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah. I really like the way you explained it in the hotspot, where you then drilled down and then saw which method. I would wish in that view we could provide something where you said jump to the significant method. I think that would be cool.
That will be really good. Yes, there is a lot of improvement we can do, by the way.
Yeah. Another question came in the very beginning when you talked about Monaco. Can you point us to Monaco again?
Yes, definitely. So in the performance clinic, right? So episode 3. Well, in episode 3, I'm just showing here what to do. Just do a pull the variables and deploy. But in episode 1 or episode 2, we have a more detail, which is environment configuration, Monaco, right? So as again, we want that you spend more time innovating and less time configuring. And here is the repository of Monaco, how to download Monaco, right? Which, by the way, let me show it. There is the new documentation.
Yeah, I saw that.
Really cool documentation.
Really nice. Yeah. I will post the link actually into the
even for developers that like black background, really cool. So the documentation, so you download the Monaco binaries so you can run it in your operating system. You just git and clone. Here is the repo in our Dynatrace Perf Clinics organization. The name of the repository is y-dev/Dynatrace, right? You navigate to this folder, set the variables, right? Your tenant can be SaaS, create a trial if you don't have Dynatrace. It's really good. It's going to be automated. Create a tenant for you. Put your token, your API token, your user for your dashboards, your IPs. So you link all the systems and synthetic test to easy travel, because remember, we're creating also synthetic tests through the whole infrastructure, right? Just load it into the shell and run Monaco. As easy as that.
Nice. Hey, one more question that came in. When you did the comparison, it says, I haven't seen the database analysis on number of invocations. Can you show again how you got to that view? I think it was where it said how many database, like there was then the new database call that came in, and then you could also switch.
Exactly. So unfortunately, this we need to do. By the way, no, it was, what did we have? 15?
I think it was 12. It was 12 to 12:15.
Well,
I'm really looking forward when we finally get the, jump to the right time frame, because we know exactly when the test
even better
happens.
now that we're recognizing the releases automatically, even the PurePaths in the releases. It will be really good to have pushing PM right now.
Yeah, I know.
To have the comparison between the two, really, really cool feature. So again, for those asking, once we compare, we have two dimensions, right? We have two completely service flow on the left side and on the right. We click on compare. Before I click on compare, because I want to compare apples with apples, very important, right? Because otherwise it's going to show me the different SQLs, but from all the different key functionalities. And we don't want that. We want to focus on what changed, and that was either recommendations or search, right? So in this case, let's take search. So you see that it works also for the search. So now we're filtering all transactions for search into releases. We go to the response time hotspot. We're going to navigate quite fast. We start jumping and following. I hope this has also database calls, because it will show us the database if we have database calls, of course, right? So continue jumping.
There we go.
Okay, yes, we have. So again, you can click, it will change depending where I click, response time, service, or database. And if I click on database usage, it's comparing the two different database usage from the service with this filter applied, right? And here are the SQLs. And a more detailed breakdown, you can filter by queries or procedures, right? Or letting you know this select is new or more. Right?
And exactly, and I think in the table, that's the nice thing. On the left, you have the new label, things that are coming in new, and then also the change in execution time. This is really good.
Exactly.
Because it really shows you with especially the number of invocations. Do you have a new, maybe a data-driven regression? Do you have new method, new?
Very, very cool. And another, what I have not shown here, but we're gonna do it in episode 4 a bit more. We're gonna analyze more the database usage in one release. You can click here, view database statements, right? And when I click here, I'm filtering all the database statements with the filter. Now I get a more detailed breakdown of the database statements, right? And here we have the dimensions, because now here I can say, hey, show me the fetch count. How many SQLs were fetched for all these different select statements? Really, really nice.
Cool. Hey, Sergio, we're at the top of the hour. I want to say, thank you again for inspiring the whole Dynatrace community with your work. This was initially done as a hands-on training day at Perform 2021. Once we go back to conferences and face-to-face meetings, hopefully next year, it looks good in February. I would love everyone to, to sign up for these hands-on training days, but it's great that you're delivering that content now as part of this episodes. Yeah,
exactly. So guys, this is the quality that we deliver our hands-on trainings in our performance events, right? The biggest performance event of the year, hosted, of course, by Dynatrace. Come and join us, meet us online. No, not online. Go meet us personally, hopefully, and have a beer and talk about performance.
Exactly.
That will be great. Yeah.
And to say one last thing in the very end, we were both very fortunate today, right? Because we can show our arms. Oh, here we go. We do our part.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah. To get there faster.
Exactly. So I'm proud, and I think it's our responsibility as engineers and data scientists. Get vaccinated. This is nothing about politics or religion. This works. Get vaccinated so we can meet face to face and help save lives. Yeah.
Exactly. Good. Hey, with this, thank you so much. The recording will be up shortly on YouTube and university.dynatrace.com. Slides also on university.dynatrace.com. And in 2 weeks, we'll be back.
2 weeks time
for the next episode.
Exactly on Thursday. It's Thursday. Yeah. Thursday, yes. Same time in 2 weeks. Bring your questions, bring your environment, and okay, spoiler alert, if you don't, we're gonna share live, only live, the login to the environment.
Yeah,
exactly. And thanks for having me, Andy. Always a pleasure.
Always. Yeah, love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.